Sometimes the strongest message you can send is silence. The moment you stop chasing someone who keeps confusing you, ignoring you, or treating you like an option, you take your power back. And trust me, the day you stop texting her might be the exact day your life starts changing. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is confusing persistence with love. They believe that if they keep trying, keep texting, keep checking in, and keep proving how much they care, eventually the other person will recognize their value and respond with the same energy. But that is not how emotional attraction works. When someone repeatedly ignores your effort, gives you inconsistent attention, replies whenever it is convenient for them, or disappears without explanation, and you continue to chase them anyway, you are unintentionally teaching them that they can disrespect you without consequences. Every extra message you send after being ignored lowers your emotional position because it communicates something powerful without words. No matter how little effort you give me, I will still stay. And once people become comfortable receiving your attention without earning it, they stop appreciating it. Human nature values things that feel meaningful, limited, and earned. What comes too easily is rarely respected for long. A lot of people think disrespect only looks obvious, like insults, betrayal, or harsh treatment. But emotional disrespect is often much quieter. It looks like delayed replies while they are active with everyone else. It looks like talking to you only when they are lonely, bored, or emotionally empty. It looks like giving you just enough attention to keep you emotionally attached, but never enough consistency to make you feel secure. And instead of recognizing these signs for what they are, many people become even more emotionally available. They send longer paragraphs, ask more questions, become more understanding, and make more excuses for behavior that is already revealing the truth. They think patience will make them lovable. They think tolerance will make someone stay. But when you constantly tolerate behavior that hurts you, you slowly train yourself to accept less than you deserve. The dangerous part is that this pattern does not only affect the relationship, it affects your self-worth. Every time you ignore your own standards to keep someone interested, a part of your confidence disappears. You begin overthinking every interaction. You start analyzing response times, replaying conversations in your head, and searching for hidden meanings behind dry messages. Your mood becomes dependent on someone else's attention, and without realizing it, you stop living your own life because your emotional focus becomes centered around whether or not someone chooses you that day. That is not love. That is emotional dependency created by inconsistency. People become addicted to mixed signals because uncertainty creates obsession. When someone gives you affection occasionally, but not consistently, your mind starts chasing emotional validation harder, hoping the next message will finally give you reassurance. Strong people understand something most emotionally attached people ignore. Respect is more important than attention. Anyone can you when they are lonely. Anyone can give temporary affection when it benefits them, but genuine interest is consistent. Genuine care does not leave you emotionally confused all the time, and the moment you start valuing your dignity more than temporary attention, your behavior changes completely. You stop chasing people who clearly enjoy being chased. You stop forcing conversations that feel one-sided. You stop explaining your value to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. Silence becomes your boundary. Distance becomes your protection. Not because you are angry, bitter, or trying to manipulate someone, but because you finally understand that self-respect is the foundation of every healthy connection. Most people underestimate the value of their attention because they give it away too freely. They think attention is harmless. Just a text message, a quick reply, another late-night conversation, another moment spent checking someone's social media, wondering why they have not responded yet. But attention is one of the most powerful emotional currencies you possess. Whatever you consistently focus on begins to control your emotions, your thoughts, and eventually your behavior. The moment you become emotionally invested in someone who gives you inconsistent energy, you slowly start handing over control of your peace. Your mood begins depending on their replies. Your confidence changes according to their level of interest. A single message can make your day feel exciting, and silence can make you anxious for hours. That is the moment attention stops being harmless and starts becoming emotional dependence. People rarely realize how much energy they waste chasing validation from someone who is emotionally unavailable. They wake up thinking about that person, sleep while replaying conversations in their mind, and spend the entire day checking their phone, hoping for attention that should never have been difficult to receive in the first place. Their focus shifts away from their own growth and becomes trapped inside emotional uncertainty. Instead of improving their life, they become consumed by trying to secure someone else's approval. And the more emotionally invested they become, the less clearly they can see the situation. They start excusing disrespectful behavior because they are afraid of losing the little attention they receive. They convince themselves that mixed signals mean hidden feelings. They tell themselves the other person is just busy or confused, while deep down, they already know the truth. Someone who truly values you does not make you question your importance every single day. Attention is powerful because it communicates value. Whatever you prioritize emotionally becomes important in your life. That is why emotionally disciplined people protect their attention carefully. They do not obsess over people who show inconsistency. They do not endlessly chase conversations that feel forced. They do not keep investing energy into someone who only responds when it benefits them. Strong individuals understand that attention should be earned through mutual respect, consistency, and genuine effort. The moment they notice imbalance, they pull back instead of trying harder, not because they do not care, but because they refuse to abandon themselves emotionally for temporary validation. One of the saddest things to witness is someone constantly trying to prove their worth to a person who already sees their effort and still chooses not to value it. No amount of over-explaining, emotional availability, loyalty, or patience can force someone to appreciate you. When people truly care, effort feels natural. Communication feels easy. You are not left emotionally starving for reassurance. But many people become trapped in the belief that if they just love harder, stay longer, or sacrifice more, they will finally become important to the other person. In reality, overinvesting in someone who gives you little in return only lowers your emotional position because it shows that your standards disappear the moment you become attached. The smartest thing you can do is redirect your attention back towards yourself. Focus on building your confidence, your goals, your peace, your health, and your future. The more connected you become to your own purpose, the less desperate you feel for someone else's validation. Emotionally attractive people are not obsessed with being chosen because their entire identity is not dependent on external attention. They know their value before anyone else confirms it. And when you finally stop treating someone's inconsistent affection like the center of your world, your entire energy changes. The moment you start chasing someone emotionally, the balance of the connection begins to shift. Healthy relationships are built on mutual effort, mutual interest, and mutual emotional investment. But when one person starts giving significantly more attention, more energy, more patience, and more emotional availability than the other, the relationship slowly turns into an emotional imbalance where one person holds the power and the other begins losing themselves. Most people do not notice when this shift happens because it usually starts with good intentions. They simply want to make the relationship work. They think sending another message, being more understanding, or trying harder will strengthen the connection. But instead of creating closeness, excessive chasing often creates emotional distance because people naturally value what feels balanced, not what feels desperate. When someone realizes you are afraid of losing them, they unconsciously begin relaxing their effort. They stop worrying about consistency because they know you will remain available regardless of how little they give in return. This is why chasing becomes dangerous. It removes the natural consequences of poor behavior. If someone ignores you for hours or days and still receives your full attention afterward, they learn that your standards are flexible. If they cancel plans, disappear emotionally, or give minimal effort while you continue investing emotionally, the imbalance grows stronger. Eventually, the relationship becomes emotionally exhausting because one person is constantly trying to maintain a connection that should have been mutual from the beginning. People often believe love means tolerating everything, but emotional imbalance destroys attraction over time. The more one-sided the effort becomes, the more frustration, anxiety, and insecurity enter the relationship. The person doing the chasing starts overthinking constantly. They become hyper-aware of every small change in behavior. A short reply suddenly feels personal. A delayed message creates stress. They begin monitoring emotional signals because they are trying to hold on to someone whose energy no longer feels stable. Instead of enjoying the connection naturally, they become emotionally trapped inside fear of loss. And the tragic part is that the more afraid someone becomes of losing another person, the more likely they are to lose themselves first. Chasing also creates an unhealthy emotional hierarchy. One person becomes the pursuer, while the other becomes the prize. One starts fighting for attention, while the other simply decides when and how much attention to give. This dynamic slowly damages self-respect because the person chasing begins accepting treatment they normally would never tolerate. They lower standards just to keep the connection alive. They stay available even when they feel neglected. They remain loyal to people who provide inconsistency, confusion, and emotional instability. Over time, they stop asking themselves an important question: does this relationship actually make me feel valued? Because they become too focused on trying not to lose the person. Emotionally mature individuals understand that real connection never requires constant chasing. Genuine interest creates natural effort from both sides. You should not feel like you are carrying the entire emotional weight of the relationship alone. You should not feel forced to constantly initiate conversations, seek reassurance, or prove your worth repeatedly. A healthy connection allows both people to feel secure, respected, and emotionally considered. There is a difference between putting effort into a relationship and fighting alone to keep it alive. One builds intimacy, the other destroys confidence. The more you chase someone who is uncertain about you, the more you communicate that your fear of losing them is stronger than your respect for yourself. And once someone realizes you are emotionally willing to tolerate anything just to keep them around, they stop seeing your attention as valuable because it no longer feels earned. Clears throat. One of the most painful things people experience in relationships is uncertainty. Not knowing where they stand, not knowing how the other person truly feels, and constantly trying to decode mixed signals creates emotional exhaustion that slowly consumes peace of mind. Many people stay trapped in confusing situations because they are terrified of discovering the truth. They would rather continue forcing conversations, sending messages, and maintaining artificial connection than face the possibility that the other person simply does not care enough. That is why silence becomes so powerful. Silence removes distractions, it removes excuses, it removes forced effort. And when you finally stop chasing, stop initiating, and stop trying to hold the connection together by yourself, reality becomes impossible to ignore. Most people are afraid of silence because silence creates answers. As long as you keep texting first, checking in, starting conversations, and reopening communication, you never truly see how effort the other person is willing to make on their own. You stay emotionally busy keeping the connection alive, which means you never allow the relationship to reveal its natural direction. But the moment you step back, everything becomes clear. Either the other person notices your absence, values your presence, and makes genuine effort to reconnect, or they comfortably continue their life without trying to reach you at all. Both outcomes hurt in different ways, but both outcomes provide clarity, and clarity is far more valuable than false hope. A lot of people believe they need a long explanation or dramatic ending to move on from someone. They wait for closure in the form of emotional conversations, apologies, or final confessions. But often, closure already exists in the lack of effort someone continuously shows. People reveal their priorities through consistency, not words. Someone can tell you they care while repeatedly ignoring you, disappearing emotionally, or treating you like an option. And many emotionally attached individuals choose to believe comforting words over painful patterns because accepting reality feels devastating. Silence forces you to stop focusing on promises and start observing actions. It forces you to see whether the relationship survives naturally without constant emotional maintenance from your side. Silence also exposes emotional dependency. When you stop texting someone and immediately feel panic, anxiety, or the urge to reach out again just to feel temporary relief, it reveals how emotionally attached you became to their validation. Many people do not realize how much power they gave another person until communication stops. Suddenly, they feel restless, emotionally empty, and desperate for reassurance. This discomfort is not always proof of love. Often, it is proof that they built emotional habits around inconsistency and attention. They became addicted to hoping for affection, and when the cycle pauses, they experience withdrawal from emotional uncertainty. That is why silence feels uncomfortable in the beginning. It forces you to sit with emotions you were distracting yourself from through constant communication. The strongest people are not those who never feel emotional pain. They are the ones who are willing to face uncomfortable truths instead of escaping them. Silence requires emotional discipline because it means resisting the urge to force connection where mutual effort is missing. It means allowing people to reveal who they truly are without trying to control the outcome. Many relationships only survive because one person refuses to stop trying. But relationships built on one-sided effort eventually collapse under emotional exhaustion. You cannot build genuine intimacy by constantly compensating for someone else's lack of investment. Sometimes silence hurts because it confirms what your intuition already knew, but your emotions refuse to accept. It shows you who values your presence naturally and who only accepted your effort because it was convenient for them. It reveals whether someone genuinely misses you or simply enjoys being chased. And while the truth may feel painful at first, uncertainty damages the mind far more deeply over time because confusion keeps people emotionally trapped inside situations that no longer serve them. One of the most dangerous emotional mistakes people make is allowing one person to become the center of their entire world. At first, it seems harmless. You think about them often, prioritize their messages, rearrange your schedule for them, and slowly begin investing more emotional energy into the connection. But over time, without realizing it, your happiness starts depending on their attention. Your mood changes based on how they speak to you. A delayed reply ruins your focus. A cold response affects your confidence. Their presence gives you emotional highs, and their absence creates emotional emptiness. This is the moment where attachment becomes unhealthy because your emotional stability is no longer coming from within yourself. It is now controlled by another person's behavior. Many people lose themselves in relationships because they stop building their own lives. They become so emotionally focused on keeping someone interested that they neglect their own ambitions, personal growth, discipline, and peace of mind. Instead of improving themselves, they spend their energy trying to secure love, validation, and reassurance from someone else. Their entire day revolves around emotional anticipation. They constantly check their phone, wait for attention, replay conversations, and analyze every interaction. Without noticing it, They slowly abandon the things that once gave them confidence and identity. Their goals become less important. Their routines become weaker. Their self-respect becomes dependent on whether another person chooses them that day. The problem with making someone the center of your world is that it creates emotional fragility. When your happiness depends heavily on one person, every small change in their behavior feels emotionally overwhelming. If they become distant, you panic. If they pull away slightly, you overthink. If they lose interest, your entire emotional state collapses because too much of your identity was attached to their presence. This is why emotionally strong people never build their entire life around romance alone. They understand that love should complement your life, not replace it. A relationship should add peace, support, and companionship to an already meaningful existence. It should never become the only source of your purpose, confidence, or emotional fulfillment. People who are deeply connected to their own lives naturally become more attractive because they radiate emotional independence. They are focused on growth, purpose, discipline, and self-respect. They enjoy relationships, but they do not emotionally depend on them for survival. They can love deeply without losing themselves completely. Their identity remains stable, whether someone stays or leaves, because they built a life that continues moving forward regardless of relationship outcomes. This kind of emotional strength creates confidence that cannot be faked. It comes from knowing that your value does not disappear just because someone fails to recognize it. A lot of individuals remain trapped in unhealthy connections because they secretly believe losing that person means losing happiness itself. That belief creates desperation, and desperation causes people to tolerate disrespect and emotional neglect simply because they fear loneliness more than unhappiness. They stay attached to people who continuously drain them emotionally because they no longer know who they are outside the relationship. Their entire emotional world became too small, too dependent, and too centered around one person's approval. Your life must become bigger than your attachment, bigger than your fear of rejection, bigger than your obsession with being chosen. You need goals that excite you, routines that strengthen you, work that fulfills you, and a purpose that keeps you grounded even when relationships become uncertain. The more connected you become to your own mission, the less emotionally desperate you feel for someone else's validation. And when your life becomes meaningful beyond romance, you stop chasing people who cannot recognize your worth because you are no longer emotionally starving for attention. One of the hardest things for people to accept is that love alone is not enough to keep a relationship healthy. You can deeply care about someone, think about them constantly, miss them every day, and still recognize that staying connected to them is destroying your emotional peace. Many people confuse attachment with destiny. They believe that if feelings are strong enough, they should continue fighting no matter how painful the situation becomes. But emotional maturity teaches a different lesson. Sometimes the strongest decision is not holding on tighter. Sometimes the strongest decision is finally letting go of what continuously hurts you, disrespects you, confuses you, or drains your self-worth. Walking away is not always weakness or failure. In many cases, it is the first moment a person finally chooses themselves instead of endlessly sacrificing their dignity for temporary affection. A lot of individuals remain trapped in unhealthy emotional cycles because they fear losing the person more than they fear losing themselves. They become willing to tolerate inconsistency, emotional neglect, mixed signals, broken promises, and repeated disappointment simply because they cannot imagine life without that connection. They stay loyal to potential instead of reality. They keep believing things will eventually change if they remain patient long enough. But while they are waiting for someone else to become emotionally available, they slowly become emotionally exhausted themselves. Their confidence weakens, their peace disappears, their mind becomes consumed with anxiety, overthinking, and emotional instability. And the tragic part is that they often mistake this emotional suffering for proof of deep love, when in reality, it is proof that they abandoned their own emotional boundaries. Walking away requires enormous emotional discipline because human beings naturally hold on to familiarity even when it hurts them. The mind becomes attached to memories, possibilities, and emotional habits. People replay the good moments repeatedly while minimizing the pain that exists in the present reality. They remember the affection, the connection, the chemistry, and the temporary moments of closeness, but ignore the sleepless nights, the confusion, the emotional inconsistency, and the constant feeling of uncertainty. This is why many people stay in situations that no longer serve them. They are emotionally attached to who the person used to be, who they hope they might become, or how the relationship felt in rare moments, instead of accepting what the relationship consistently makes them feel now. True self-love is not simply positive thinking or self-care routines. Self-love is the ability to protect your emotional well-being even when your feelings tempt you to stay somewhere unhealthy. It is having the courage to say, I care about you, but I cannot continue sacrificing my peace for this connection. That level of emotional honesty is extremely difficult because it forces you to disappoint your attachment in order to protect your future. Many people continuously betray themselves emotionally because they are terrified of temporary loneliness, but loneliness heals faster than prolonged emotional damage. Staying in situations where your value is constantly questioned slowly destroys your inner confidence in ways people often do not notice until much later. The strongest individuals understand that walking away is not about revenge, ego, or trying to prove a point. It is about recognizing when a connection is no longer healthy for your mental and emotional state. It is understanding that love should not require you to constantly feel anxious, unwanted, emotionally drained, or insecure. Healthy love creates stability, respect, trust, and emotional safety. It does not leave you endlessly questioning your worth or begging for consistency. And while leaving someone you care about may feel painful in the moment, remaining in a connection that repeatedly damages your self-respect eventually becomes far more painful over time.